I've covered a ton of Konami over the years. Now, admittedly, most of it is Castlevania, but sometimes a classic game comes across your plate that you never had much interest in. It brings you back to the days of discovering exactly what that term means, classic game. I'm talking about today's title, Jackal. Specifically, we're diving into the Nintendo Entertainment System port. So, is Jackal worthy of being labeled a classic? Ported over from the 1986 arcade game of the same name, Jackal, and funny enough, it wasn't even called Jackal in North America. The arcade game was released in North America under the title Top Gunner. Maybe to somehow relate to Top Gun the movie? Doubtful. Europe got the game as Jackal, so when the NES port was created, they kept it simple and gave it the same name. Side note, the official title in Japan, at least regarding the arcade game, is Tokusho Butai Jakaru, or just simply Special Forces Jackal. Aside from some mostly European computer systems like the Amstrad CPC, the ZX Spectrum, and the Commodore 64, the most popular release of the game was its NES port, which actually changed quite a bit about the game. Classified as a run-and gun, Jackal tells the tale of 4 men who are attempting to save the prisoners of war hidden in these small locations: Colonel Decker, Sergeant Quint, Lieutenant Bob, and Corporal Gray. These 4 lead the charge in through enemy lines to save their men. The POWs are scattered all over the game, and it's a quick way to rack up points, and you're gonna need them. You start the game with 3 lives and 3 continues, though lives can be acquired every 30,000 points. Depending on what you destroy, your demolition will lead to a variety of points, and it's really fun to keep the marathon going to rack up a big score. However, lose all your lives and your score resets to 0. In a game like this, where score can affect performance and lives, I don't mind it, but generally speaking, I could care less about scores. Gameplay-wise, think of this like a top-down Metal Gear aesthetic based around the play control of the driving sections of the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. Remember driving all over New York with your pea shooter and rockets, crushing foot soldiers and blowing away foot tanks? Yeah, that's pretty much the whole game on a much larger scale. Instead of tight little corridors, you're traveling vertically hunting for POWs and power-ups while moving horizontally up towards the end of each level. Eventually in each stage, you'll come across a flagged-off area that will allow you to safely drop off POWs to be escorted away from harm. However, in later stages you can be attacked while doing this, so just keep that in mind. There's 6 stages in all, with a boss at the end of each. Now this is different from the arcade game, which was just one long level. The enemies are mostly consisting of guards, tanks, gun turrets, pop-up spread shot shooters, and the occasional planes that bomb you. There's actually a ton of variety here in the enemies, with even more than I've mentioned, and it really keeps the challenge evolving as you try to figure out new ways to defeat them. It's rare to see such an assortment of enemies back then, and I think Konami did a great job of keeping players engaged throughout the entire campaign. And I think I actually like the fact that it's stages rather than just one long level. I think that really breaks up the monotony of just plowing through a game till the end. It gives you a sense of accomplishment, like, hey, I'm advancing. With that said, the difficulty tends to start ramping up towards the 3rd or 4th stage, but it never reaches the point of frustration. Anytime I died, it was my fault, and not a cheap death. These are my favorite kinds of games because they present a balanced challenge that's exciting to overcome on your own. There is a 2-player mode where instead of a green truck you play as a brown one, though I didn't really give this mode a shot, to be fair. I'd imagine it would be even harder because you're trying to keep both players alive until the end, a feat not easily done even during single player. I know it's nitpicky, but the intro in this game barely gives you enough time to read the story prompt before it skips to the pictures of our heroes. You've got to watch it a few times to actually read the whole thing. Color-wise, the game is full of what you'd come to expect from this type of game. Lots of forest greens, dirt browns, and sandy yellows. Still, the environments look great, and each level introduces territories unlike the previous. Your combat jeep will explore jungles, enemy bases, swampy marshes, and sea-bound enemy lines. Each stage really stands out. Jackal has a lot of visual character despite being a war-themed game, which is a genre that tends to play to its visual tropes pretty hard. I wanted to showcase a little bit of the manual in this review, as it highlights some content I don't think many people touch on. For starters, this game takes place in what appears to be a post-Vietnam War, as it says "Return to Nam" at the top of the page. It mentions the American prisoners have been gone for years, so it's either after the war or towards the end. The levels are actually called checkpoint territories, with specific names applied to each. There's Checkpoint Alpha, Baker, Charlie, Delta, Tango, and Zulu. I'm not sure why they jumped in the military letter code from A, B, C, D to T, then Z, but oh well. The soldiers running around in the game are easy to separate from the POWs, and I like that enemy fire towards your vehicle doesn't hurt POWs if they're ejected from it after you die. Driving around, you'll sometimes trigger a clear screen power-up if collected, which decimates the enemies on screen, as expected. The remaining power-ups are triggered by finding flashing POWs in certain houses beyond the normal ones. These guys, when recaptured, give you an upgrade to your grenade, turning it into a missile. I've found a major upgrade kind of scattered throughout the game as well, but it's more rare and it's generally an icon similar to the one that does a clear screen. This can later be expanded if stacking more of these special POWs, giving you a missile that can spread its damage beyond just the initial shot. Similar to a game like Gradius, stacking your power-ups makes the game easier, but dying knocks you back down to the original grenade. However, I felt like the climb back up to full strength was much easier than in the Gradius series. One of the reasons the game feels easier than it should is because your pea shooter gun is always aiming north, despite the vehicle pointing in a different direction. Using the B button, you can shoot with the standard gun, while the A button controls the grenades or missiles depending on if you powered up. I believe your main guns also get upgraded and shots travel farther, and they're slightly more powerful, but perhaps that's just my imagination. I feel like the rate of fire is sped up too, depending on these power-ups. Bosses could have been a little tougher in each stage, with the hardest being the final boss, but not because it's actually difficult. It's mostly because your lives have been drained throughout one of the hardest stages in the game, so to finish with a 3-part final boss is probably the most brutal part to defeat. From tougher tanks to statues that shoot rockets, spread shot pop-up aircraft carriers, and more, Jackal's bosses build upon what is showcased throughout the level, typically featuring a boss that echoes casual enemies by making them tougher. The soundtrack on Jackal is short but extremely memorable. Composed by Atsushi Fujio and Shinya Sakamoto, you'll hear only a few tracks throughout the playthrough, but they all ring true to the Konami NES sound you know and love. Wait, what's that? You don't like Konami NES tunes? What are you even doing here? Sorry, lost my composure for a second. Anyways, I love the slamming sounds of this militant heavy metal sonic sphere. Standout tracks include the Stage 2 theme and the boss music. I can't speak highly enough of Jackal on the NES. I'd really never played that much of it, and always kind of slogged it off as just like an assumedly dumb port. But much like what my high school geometry teacher told me, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. I'm glad I finally got to sit down and play through this one. It's quickly risen through the ranks for me to be certified as a classic Nintendo game experience, which is an odd thing to say about a system that you grew up on. Leave it to good old Konami to bring a smile back to my face by reliving their golden years. The game is still easy to purchase for under $20 at this time of the discussion, and I'd say it's money well spent. If you didn't have this one in your collection, now's the time to get it. Good tunes, tight controls, solid graphics, and an overall super fun game. What's not to love? Well, I guess it could use a Belmont whipping. Oh, okay, I'll stop. Special thanks to Patreon member Venthros for his mini review suggestion. Want to get a specific game reviewed by me? Sadly, mini reviews are sold out, but the full reviews are still available via the Projectile Fireball Whip tier. Check it out in the link down below. Thanks to all Patreon supporters, but especially the Morningstar Whip tier and up. They are Sam Schaefer, The Eighth Sign, Scott McElhone, Venthros, Great White North Presents, Nintendo, Bryce, Derek Demitter, and Trevin Adams. Your continued support helps fund reviews like this one, which would simply not be possible without the donations from Patreon members. I appreciate each and every one of you for continuing to help me make the content that you want to see. Classic goofy YouTube video game reviews. If anyone is interested, just $1 down gets you access to exclusive streams on Discord, stretch goals like Taco Bell food reviews each month, along with director's cut commentary for episodes, a free sticker, regular updates on upcoming reviews, and more. Check it out at patreon.com/dongled. I hate to sound like a typical YouTuber, but if Patreon's not your thing, but you still want to help get the word out, share this video on social media. Exposure really helps, so if you like these videos and think your friends will too, sharing it with them means a lot. Want more Dude You Haven't Played This Game? Check out the videos enclosed below. You can click on the left-hand side or the right-hand side for a totally different but totally awesome review. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Dude You Haven't Played This Game.